Hi, my name is Kerry Petty. I've been a Pilates instructor for 20 years, and I'm working on some videos that I think will help your Pilates home workout since we're sheltering at home. So the previous one I did was on some trouble with some of the harder exercises of hundreds and the roll-ups. So I'm going to continue in that vein, and we're going to work a little bit on rotation exercises and then exercises that you do on your stomach that can be particularly hard for people that do Pilates, that come to Pilates because they have back issues. But it is really important that when you're doing your Pilates exercise program, that you're on your back, you're flipping to your stomach, you're flipping on your side, you're seated up so that you're working the body in all different ways. You don't just want to be lying on your back. So we're going to do some rotation exercises right now. One is spine twist and one is saw. A lot of times what I see is people just overworking their arm and they're not getting the rotation. So what you want to think about, that what is happening is that when you're doing rotation, that you are getting that rib cage to work. So that as you're turning, that you feel the muscles that attach above and below each rib, that you feel that pulling here. So I can almost keep my rib cage still if I just swing that arm around. So I really am trying to feel that rotation, or thinking about rotation around the spine, almost like you are turning on a spit, which is kind of an interesting concept to think about. Or the other one is that like you're turning like an old-fashioned barber pole. Okay. So spine twist can be done a couple of different ways. Arms are reaching out in front of you. You can think about this left arm staying over the left leg. And then I'm just going to slowly turn in a 3 count, turn a little bit further, turn a little bit further, and then come back to the center. We know that the body has a stretch reflex to keep you from overstretching. So it's kind of like we reset that. That's why we stop. So you're going to rotate. You might feel the stiffness in the spine. You can rotate a little bit further, use either a little bit more give, and then rotate a little bit further, and then come back to the center. So again, what it doesn't look like is that you're turning and this arm is going up, because then the shoulder is elevating. Again, the work is going in the upper traps where everybody's tight and it's not getting in the rib cage. Let's do that 2 more times before we switch. So rotate 1, 2, 3. This is as far as I can go. You're turning the spine and the ribs. Inhale, come back center. So unless you're kind of the exorcist, nobody's going to be able to move any further. What I'm trying to feel back here is also here that I haven't pulled my shoulder blade off my rib cage. Come back to the center. All right, let's switch to the other side. So exhale, I'm going to rotate 1, 2, 3. Inhale, pull back center. Exhale to rotate around the spine, so I'm tall through the spine. Be careful you're not just overturning your head. When you overturn your head, your body thinks, oh, you're going further, because it registers in your eyes of what you're looking at. But again, try to feel it in the spine. The nose stays in line with the sternum, and then slowly come back center. Another thing to think about is we'll change the arm position here. Sometimes if the arm is not so far out, you can turn better. I want to feel equal weight on both seat bones, but we do know now that your hips are going to turn just ever so slightly. That's very important for people that have a low back injury. So originally, when the original exercise were written, you were supposed to keep everything still, even when I first trained, and they continue to exercise science grows in leaps and bounds. So they know that there's a slight rotation in the hips too. But what you don't want to feel is that a sit bone lifts up. So that as I start to rotate and turn, I lift that sit bone up. It makes you look like you've gone further, but again, you've taken the turn out of the body. Let's switch to the other side. One side is always much easier to turn. This side easier for me, not having to twist that tight right side. Again, I'm turning through the rib cage. Maybe I'm thinking about the belly button and the sternum turning. Not again focusing on my arm. Good. Last one. Okay. So a lot of us are tight in the back, we're tight in the rib cage. So rotation exercises are super important for you. Just want to make sure you do them correctly. Now saw adds flexion to rotation, so it makes it even trickier. I want to take my legs just in a straddle position. Arms are reaching out to the side, kind of in that straddle position. I'm going to rotate first. It's important that everything doesn't get put together or you won't get as much work. So I'm going to rotate first, and then I want to think about one of the giant saws out in the woods. So I'm going to take my left hand to the outside of my right ankle, and then my left arm is trying to reach up toward the ceiling. And then I'm going to saw. So I'm going to saw the ankle and then pull back slightly, saw a little bit further and pull back slightly. And the furthest I go here, again, I'm making sure that I haven't elevated that left seat bone. It would make me feel like I'd reach further, but I've taken the rotation out of the rib cage. You're going to sit all the way back up. That's important before you twist back to the center. So I'm turning on a spit, facing the left leg. I'm going to reach. It feels like I'm listening to my left knee with my right ear. I'm going to reach 1 and 2 and 3. Sit all the way back up, stacking the ribs over the pelvis, the shoulders over the pelvis, and then I turn back to the center. This is really a really nice exercise. One of the things I think happens is that we feel like this becomes a bounce and you're not coming all the way back. So if you're sawing on a blade, you reach forward and then you just clear. You reach a little bit more forward. This arm is reaching up and out, so a nice long line between fingertips to fingertips. One more time, sitting all the way back up, and then come back to that center position. And again, rotate around the spine. Exhale to reach long, and reach 1 and 2. Right seat bone is down, and 3. Sit all the way back up. Pull back through that center position. We'll do one more on each side. Normally 3 to 4 reps is plenty. Mr. Pilates usually did about 4. So you get a nice stretch through the back of the legs, sitting all the way back up. Now, if this is tight for you, you could bend your knees a little bit. That's hamstring people. The other thing that you can do is you can sit your butt higher than your feet, and you'll get a release of the hamstrings. So an easy fix there would be sitting on a pillow, but it's soft. So the best thing would be, the easiest to get would probably be 2 yoga bricks to sit on, since yoga bricks are narrow. But that will sit you up that little bit higher. And then come all the way back up, and then back to that center position. Let's do a nice stretch here. I'm just going to stretch over my legs with my toes pointed. Abs are pulled up and in. And then I'm going to pull my toes toward me, lengthen out the spine. Good. One more time, stretch forward, and again, you can stretch as far as you want to with your upper body. And then flexing the toes, pulling it towards you. All right, probably the worst one of doing it correctly is obliques. It's hard enough that you're trying to lift the upper body up, and then they're asking you to turn. So what it should look like when you're doing it, and typically they tell you to hold the back of the head, so I don't do that. I put my hands here so I'm not pulling on my neck. And you're going to be lifting up, and then you're going to be rotating. And as you rotate, your elbows stay nice and wide, and then pull back through the center. And again, you rotate, and then come back to the center. Typically what people have a tendency to do is, as they rotate and they're bending a leg, then they start, when they rotate, they pull that elbow to the knee. I prefer to keep those elbows wide. I've even got to the point of some people, when they can't feel it, is to actually take a dowel behind me, and then I can put my hands here, so I'm pressing my elbows back toward the stick, and so that really helps me to keep that feeling of staying open through here. So the exercise is called obliques. It's a version of single leg stretch, so I'll kind of show that first. So with the single leg stretch, the legs are alternating. Head, neck, and shoulders can be lifted. And then if we want to take that into the obliques, then we're going to go here. So basically you're going to lift up, Okay, and then you're going to rotate. Notice I'm not pulling this elbow to the knee because it actually takes the rotation. I don't feel anything there. Then you come back center with both legs bent, and then you're going to lift, rotate the sternum, inhale, pull back center. Rotate, pull back center. You can almost think, as I turn this way, that I'm actually pulling that right elbow back, and then I've got this wandering elbow that really wants to pull. And ask yourself, do you feel it in the rib cage? Here, I don't at all. I've twisted, I've turned, my pelvis isn't level. You see that a lot. And again, precision, now I feel it in the rib cage, so in my left rib cage as I rotate. And again, this arm wants to come, I've got to take it back. Got one more on each side, and then inhale, come back center. And I'm just going to pull the knees into the chest, rock a little bit across one side when I was doing it wrong. A little tightness in the back. Good. And then slowly come back to the center position. So rotation is great for the back and the rib cage. If you're doing it for exercise purposes only, then it's going to work on defining the waistline. So if you're doing it by pulling up your shoulder, that certainly has nothing to do with the waistline. So you've got to think of precision of the exercise, the purpose of the exercise, and then you can do the exercise more correctly. Okay, we're going to do some prone exercises now, and a lot of people don't like to do them. I get comments like, it makes me nauseous when I'm on my stomach. I feel like I'm going to throw up. It hurts my low back. Obviously, none of those things are good. But it's very important to stretch the spine. So we're putting the spine into extension sometimes. So we do a lot of flexion in Pilates. Well, the spine's got to go the other way, just like it has to side bend. It's also got to go into a little bit of an arch. The thing that you want to think about is that everybody dumps into their low back to arch, and I want to challenge you to see if you can move through individual vertebrae and try to get some movement in the upper and the middle back. Stiffness there creates stiffness through the whole back, and so that's the purpose of most of the exercises that we're doing. You're laying on your stomach, so you've got to try to feel that you pull that belly button to the spine as you're doing these different exercises. All right, so you're going to go on your stomach. When you're on your stomach, I like to spread my legs a little bit wide. It helps to open the hips. The first one that we're going to do is called scarecrow, and it's about being able to hold the upper body up with your lat muscles. Remember, we talked about those as being the swimmer's muscles, that if you push down against resistance, you'll feel that muscle pop out underneath your arm. The reason that it looked like professional swimmers have super wide shoulders is because the overdevelopment of their lat muscles. So what I want to feel when I start here is that I pull the belly button to the spine so that you see a real secure feeling for the low back. So if I don't have it, it looks like that. So my stomach is just flabby. I'm going to lengthen my tailbone and then pull the belly button to the spine, tightening my weightlifter's belt. The movement is I'm going to lengthen through the head and neck. I'm going to hover my forearms off the mat. Then I'm going to hover my elbows off the mat. Drop the elbows down, drop the forearm down, drop the head and neck down. And about halfway through, I had to re-engage my deep abs. You start to think about the choreography, and then you lose the purpose of the exercise. Same here, I do it too. And inhale, lengthen through the neck. That should feel, it feels like a nice stretch. Make sure my abs are pulled down. I'm going to hover my forearms. So the weight is now down underneath my armpits and my lats and serratus. Hover my elbows, drop the elbows down, drop the forearms down, drop the head and neck down. We'll do that one more. Inhale, lengthen through the back of the neck, hover the forearms off the mat, hover the elbows off the mat, drop the elbows down, drop the forearms down, drop the head and neck down. Typically pushing back into child's pose, I'll do a modified version of that. Sometimes it puts compression on the spine. If you have a low back issue, It's helpful to put a compression pad underneath this area. All right, so we're going to move into what, if you do yoga, would look like starting up a cobra or upward facing dog, and it's more of a swan dive is what we call it. So it's going to move in articulation through the spine. And really think about the deep abdominal muscles. So I'm going to press in here. Pelvic floor pulls up and in. I'm just going to slowly move through the head and neck, shoulders, my sternum is still on the mat, and then slowly back down. And as I come back down, I'm trying to work through each part of my back. Notice that what I don't do is here, I get some people, they can't move through their upper back, so they just keep moving through their head. So that creates tension in the back of my neck and in my throat. I want to lengthen out the spine so my head's in line with my neck vertebrae, and then slowly lower back down. If you start to feel your legs lift and you're starting to use your glutes too much to try to stabilize, or you might be tightening your hamstrings. So this is an upper body exercise, but your stability comes from the core. You can't use muscles that aren't made to stabilize because they won't be able to do that. And you might even get a cramp in your legs. Let's do one more of that. Small movement, abs are pulled up and in, belly button to the spine. Slowly lengthen out the neck, and then hover the forearms down, out, hover the elbows out, put the elbows down, put the forearms down, put the head and neck down. And again, we'll push back into child's pose. So that's teaching you articulation through the spine, as well as being able to hold the upper body up with those lat muscles and not dumping into the low back. So for instance, when we come to the next exercise, swimming, that there's not a huge arch in your back or breaststroke. So you can think of where you're jumping into the pool now. Sometimes I like to just do the forearms, the arms or the legs in swimming. We can also do what we call swimming prep. So I'm lengthening out through the head and neck, abs are pulled up and in. I lift the right arm, left leg, and switch. And switch. Keep the abs pulled in, keep the neck long. You're not here. And you're not rocking. So you're using your core strength to keep yourself level as you're working. Progression, or with moving quicker, then I would just work the legs. Again, abs are pulled up and in. So it's a scissor kick, usually done to a 10 count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You can really feel the glutes working. Then with the lower body stabilizing, again, the abs are still pulled in, the arms are reaching out. Make sure you don't elevate those shoulders, and then you're scissoring. This doesn't feel like swimming. I don't do this one as much because the scissor kicking and then the alternating I feel is a little bit better for most people. Good. And then we'll push back into a child's pose. When we go into breaststroke, it has a little bit more movement with the arms. It feels a little bit more like you're actually in the pool, which growing up in Florida, we swam a lot. It's a nice movement, and it helps the stabilization of the shoulders. Again, people have a tendency to start to feel this in the low back. Your movement's too big if it's in the low back. The instructor is going to tell you what the movement is, but remember, you can modify it for yourself if you start to feel tension in the head, neck, or shoulders, or the abdominals. So my legs are wide. I'm pressing the pelvis down, pressing the top of the feet down. I'm going to reach forward like I'm gliding through the water. And then exhale, I'm going to pull back to my hips, lift my head, neck, and shoulders up. Inhale to reach. This is like I'm lifting up to take a breath in the pool. Inhale to reach long, abs are pulled up and in. Pull back. Notice that when I reach forward, my shoulders aren't way up, so they're still stabilized, and I have a small bend in my elbow because that's as far as I can reach, stabilizing. 2 more. And last one. Good. Sometimes doing a little bit of a rotation of child's pose will help you get a nice stretch in the obliques that we've been working in that rotation. Good. And then over to that opposite side. So I hope that helps you to do exercises that maybe are a little bit more difficult or get the most workout from them. So the exercises on the stomach, remember you've really got to pull those abs in. You've got to keep your shoulders stabilized in order to feel it correctly. If you have trouble doing that, then your arms may be reaching out too far, so soften your elbows. Your movement may need to be smaller, like on breaststroke, doing it with a bent elbow position. Right. And then when we did the rotation, remember, rotation is about rotating around the spine. It's not just about an arm movement. So I hope that helps you to practice some of those exercises individually. And I'll be back with a new workshop basically on how to build more of an intermediate mini workout in Pilates.